the podcast, leadership and other stuff. Sorry, I've missed a couple of weeks of podcasts, but I'm back on it now. And today, I want to talk about 10 enemies to progress in any organization. Oftentimes, when there's a lack of progress, a lack of momentum, a lack of expansion or growth, it's because of certain things. And the first one of those things may surprise you. It's meetings. People love meetings. I know in a church we have enough meetings at the weekends, and then you have the pre-meeting to organize the meeting, and then you have the meeting, then you have the debrief meeting, then you have the staff meeting, then you have the department heads meeting with their people, then you have pastoral meetings. And can I tell you that you have no time left to actually be out there doing what you're supposed to be doing. And oftentimes, we become internalized within a staff or a team, and so much of what we're doing is internal action rather than being out there. If you're a pastor, on the coalface pastoring. If you're a salesperson, out there on the warpath, on the sales trip journey. And so I think meetings can be a curse. We feel like they're a blessing. We feel like they're helping us be organized. But ultimately, get out there, have less meetings, and you'll be a whole lot better off. Second thing that will help progress in any organization is indecision. You just can't make decisions. Good leaders are decisive. They know what they want. They know where they're going. And usually indecision is fear. You're afraid to make a decision. You're afraid of the consequences, but it's not going to help you whatsoever. And of course, if you're indecisive, people start making their own decisions. People are running in a million different directions. Indecision is an enemy to progress. And I think making decisions, you can't be rushed by other people who want it to be immediate. They want it to be now. I can think of times when someone would show you maybe some artwork and they say the deadlock is 2:00, but they're not even showing you till 1:00. And the reality is they're the ones with the problem, not you. And so don't be forced into making decisions too quickly. Sometimes you need to hear the mind of the Spirit. Sometimes you need to get wise counsel from other people. Until you're ready to make a decision, don't make a decision. But if you can't make decisions, it's chaos and progress will be stilted. So the third thing is red tape. I hate red tape. With all of the requirements these days from governments, from departments, I'm talking about perhaps governmental departments or, whatever it is, a whole lot of red tape, and people can be suffocated under the weight of HR. I mean, I can remember we had risk committees, we had finance committees, we had all sorts of other committees, and, policy schmolicy. Again, you can be suffocated by policy. Policies aren't always your friends. You want to be decisive. You want to be out there doing it. And if you're struggling under the weight of policy, and then on top of policy, you have bureaucracy, all these layers, and it's not as a positive. I think sometimes people who think only corporately, then they're all about red tape. If you want to have life in your team and life in your staff and the feeling like you can breathe and then you're free, then you can't allow red tape to rule everything. The fourth thing I've got here, along the same lines, is layers of bureaucracy. Layers of bureaucracy. You see, what tends to happen, especially as an organization grows, you've got the leadership, the leader, and then perhaps you've got, in a church, you've got the pastor, then you've got maybe associate pastors, you've got campus pastors. If the church is global, you've got lead pastors, and then you've got all of these other layers I mentioned department heads, and then perhaps if the department's a big department, they have their own answerability, chain of command. And do you know what? This is what I found as a leader. Oftentimes people would say, this is what Brian wants, or this is what Brian said. And often by the time it's been through all those layers of grey, I call it, this is what Brian actually wanted, then you've got all these layers where perhaps people are putting something of their own spirit into it. So it's not just your spirit now. It might be tainted by other people trying to get what they want. So by the time it gets down to the coalface again, you know what happens? That people say this is what Brian wants, but it had nothing to do with what Brian wanted. Or it certainly doesn't have the spirit that Brian portrayed when he asked for something to be done. And so it's a big struggle for any growing organization to be able to get messages clear with a proper clean spirit through all those layers down to, I actually banned people saying, this is what Brian wants, because too often there's a little bit too much of what they actually want and you're getting the blame. You're the leader. You're getting the blame for what they actually want. And so those layers, I call it the grey. This is where it starts, but by the time it goes through all those layers of leadership, it's not the same message. And it certainly doesn't carry the same spirit. So again, I see that as a danger that you have to avoid. Number 5 is disunity. Disunity will halt progress every single time. We know the Bible says where there's unity, God commands blessing. Blessing flows with unity. And the enemy, the devil, he'll always try to bring disunity into any organization because confusion comes in and it will cease progress every single time. You have to be committed to unity. You have to never take unity for granted. You have to work at it. You have to make sure that everyone's on the same page, that everyone's carrying the same spirit. And man, if there's disunity, you've got to take radical action, even if it means losing some people, even if it means cutting down some spirits that are contrary to the spirit of the organization. Disunity is an absolute killer, and you can't have it. Where there is unity, God commands. It's not a possibility. It's a command that blessing, that life, that growth, that health will flow. So I'm going through these pretty quickly. The 6th thing is just a lack of clarity. People don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. They don't really know what you really want. I talk here about clarity, but it's vision. Where there is no vision, people dwell carelessly. People cast off restraint. And again, people will be running after their own visions. You can't have multiple visions if everyone's going to be on the same path, having the same goals and objectives. It's really important that you are a great sharer of vision. You can impart it. You can get it into people's spirits. You can get them to be carriers of the vision. When the whole organization, the whole ministry knows this is what we're about, this is where we're going, you're decisive, you've got a very followable vision that people can actually own. And if you don't have that vision absolutely clear-cut and certain, I love it when you go into some churches, I remember going into Dave Ramsey's offices, and just on the walls, everywhere, were mission statements, were testimonies of people who had been impacted by that ministry or that business, and it was inspiring to see. You got to keep everybody on the same page. There has to be clarity in terms of what you want. I always was someone who loved people to use initiative. I didn't want to have to be sitting there every day and saying, well, today I want you to do this and then that and then that, and here's your list for the day. No, I wanted the people to be carriers of initiative. But the truth is that in that, if people are just doing their own thing, they've got room because you gave them initiative. And so now they're just chasing after whatever they want to chase after. And people can be pursuing their own vision. At Hillsong, I would say we have one vision. And we serve that one vision through all the various ministries, outreaches, and departments of our church. And when people are clear-cut about the mission, about vision, you'll bring progress. But without it, just like, a lack of leadership or indecision, just the same thing. Vision is critical. A measurable, exciting, inspiring vision that has people motivated, has them inspired, and has them pursuing whatever it is that you are all about. And ultimately, you'll have a team that are fulfilled. You'll have a team who feels like they can move forward because they know what they're trying to achieve. Vision, vision, vision. Or as I say here, clarity, clarity, clarity. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is what we're about. I often think about Apostle Paul. He starts the book of Ephesians, and he starts it like this: Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, by the will of God, to the saints who are in Ephesus. Think about that. Paul, this is who I am. An apostle, this is what I do. Of Jesus Christ, this is who I do it for. By the will of God, that's my authority. To the saints who are in Ephesus, that's my target audience. Beautiful, beautiful. It sounds so easy, but often there's no clarity. And so people they just don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Number 7, similar, too many chiefs. Too many chiefs. Too many people in charge. I think even in a situation, Bobby and I, we were global senior pastors together. I was the global senior pastor, she was the co-global senior pastor. We were absolutely in it together. But it wasn't two heads. You've probably heard it said, anything with two heads is a monster. It wasn't two heads. No, we would flow together. We had different gifts, different focuses, and yet together it worked beautifully. And so I would just to encourage you to make sure that you have leadership. Leadership comes under attack, especially strong leadership. Strong leadership's not manipulating people. It's not narcissistic. It doesn't gaslight. That's weak leadership. Strong leadership has vision, has clarity, is decisive, knows where you're going, and people will get behind that. It inspires them. They'll want to be a part of it. So again, know who the leader is. Don't be afraid of strong leadership. People who undermine leadership, I think they work against progress. They work against success and fruitfulness. They work against all of those things. Number 8, wrong moves, crazy choices. Sometimes you make decisions just before you should have made decisions. Sometimes you step out into new areas before you're even ready. A lot of businesses that were successful when they were small try to expand too quickly, then suddenly put pressure on cash flow, put pressure on all sorts of things, and that's actually sad. And so we've got to be decisive, yes, but we need to have really prayed through or thought through the decisions that we're making. Because a wrong decision, listen, I think in church sometimes we're so itchy to get ahead and we're so itchy to progress that we progress before we're ready. For example, if a church has one strong campus and then they want to expand to 2, have you asked yourself, do you have the teams to do that? Do you have the children's ministry that can carry 2 meetings? Or if you're going to, like I say, 2 campuses, can we multiply ourselves twice over? Because if you're just going to weaken the base, it's not going to bring progress at all. As a matter of fact, it will stilt progress. And so critical, absolutely critical, that we know what decisions. I think you can get away with the odd wrong decision. You just lick your wounds. I often talked about the fact people knew about Hillsong and its successes all over the world. And nowadays, Hillsong has a great church in Italy, in Milan, I think also in Napoli. But the first time we tried to go to Milan, no one ever hears about that because it was the wrong person at the wrong time, in the wrong place, and ultimately it failed. It didn't succeed. But it didn't ultimately have an impact on where progress went to and what God finally did. You can make the odd wrong decision, but if you keep on making wrong decisions, it's going to damage you, it's going to hurt you. And so we need to really know that moves that we're taking, you hear the voice of God, that's powerful. You hear the mind of the Spirit. You listen to your own spirit and you get a certainty. People would say, how did you know where to start churches? And I just always went back to those things. It's got to be the right person or people at the right place at the right time. If you've got all 3 of those, it'll work every time. If you get the right person and the right place, but at the wrong time, it can be disastrous. Same thing. You get maybe the right place and the right time, but you just got the wrong person. Put the 3 together, it'll work every time. And so let's think about that. Number 9 is just mediocrity. Mediocrity is a disaster. It's complacency. It's like a sports team that one week they look like world beaters and the next week they just don't show up. And it's like Jekyll and Hyde. It's like, how could that team last week be the same team this week? And there's in football, rugby, so many drop balls, so many forward passes. It just kills you. Anyone who knows me well knows my 3 major sports teams are Chelsea in the English Premier League, Parramatta, the beloved Parramatta Eels, a heartbreak story every year in the NRL, the National Rugby League in Australia, and of course the mighty All Blacks, having been born a New Zealander. But Parramatta, just last week, they played a great game. They hardly made a mistake through the whole game, the whole 80 minutes. That I watched this morning, what here in America was the game that happened in the middle of the night. You couldn't believe it was the same team. It was just, mediocrity. People have got to be switched on. And mediocrity is a lack of excellence. It's a lack of a whole lot of things. Mediocrity breathes complacency. It's being half-hearted. Excellence. Daniel had an excellent spirit. And the Bible does talk about excellence. You will always get what you allow. Let me say that again. You'll always get what you allow. Atmosphere was always very important to me. So in a big auditorium, we didn't just let people sit wherever they want and have big gaps in between people because it's an actual atmosphere killer. No, we would push people in so it was tight and people were together and it gives it a sense of momentum. One of the things some people could never understand is if we had an auditorium where there was a flat floor, we would always put out less chairs than we may need. And it was hard work for the ushers because all of a sudden, those chairs are now packed full and the latecomers are still coming. So they're putting out extra chairs. And, a lot of people can't see the wisdom in that. But when someone looks around and goes, wow, look at this, we're putting out extra chairs, it's kind of exciting. It's great. And so mediocrity kills the cat. I don't know what cat it kills, but the lack of excellence, you get what you allow. If you're happy for screaming babies, if you're happy for kids running all around the room, fine. But you get what you allow. And so I would encourage you to really be certain that you're not content with mediocrity. Excellence also gets a bad rap oftentimes because it challenges people. It challenges them to rise up. It challenges them to keep growing and improving and increasing. So don't allow mediocrity to creep in because it's damaging. It'll hurt you and it'll halt progress every time. But where there's excellence, it's incredible how momentum starts to flow. By the way, mediocrity comes down to the way we speak, the conversations that we have. It comes down to a whole lot of things. You get what you allow. If there's a lot of negativity, if there's a real gossipy culture, well, it's going to damage you. It's going to halt progress. I'm talking about 10 things that will halt progress in any organization, and I'm already up to number 10. And number 10, it might be a little repetitive of something I said earlier, but it's just a fear of change. People don't like change. One memorable, for some people, not memorable at all, moment at Hillsong. I felt like there was some mediocrity and I just felt like people were too comfortable in what they were doing. So one time, right before Christmas, I pulled in, I don't know how many people, 20 people, and I switched all their jobs up. You got no idea what a spin that threw people into. You got no idea how much it freaked people out. Some people don't like surprises. It's usually the same people who don't like change. I do say as a leader, if you're making big changes, you can't just throw it out at people. You've taken time to mull over it and think about it and prepare for it. But then if you just throw it out at people, they haven't had that time. They haven't had that time to think it through and everything. So you've got to lead people through change. You've got to lead them into seeing the wisdom. You've got to lead them. I always think it's a great thing when you present any vision or you present any change that you think about the objections. You think about what people might not want or what people might like. So the questions that people will ask. And when you present it, when you present change, answer those objections before people even ask them. I think that's great. Fear of change is a very real thing. If you don't like change, you'll be set in your ways and you're going to end up set because anything that has no change is going to die ultimately. I mean, life, we're always changing. Look at me, 72 years of age, silver hair up here, silver white beard these days. I mean, I'm changing. And on this side of eternity, you can't avoid change. It has to happen. And if you don't change anything, oftentimes you're going to miss the next wave, the next big thing that God wants to do. Change is not bad. Change is good. As long as you're making the right changes, you're leading people through the change. If you don't change, you won't grow. There you go. 10 things in leadership and other things that will halt growth in any ministry, in any church, in any organization. Let's be ready for that. Let's be ready to improve in all those areas, and it's amazing what God can do. You be blessed. See you next time. Thanks so much.